Just a short introduction to TVET in South Africa so that we understand some of the issues and why TVET is important. TVET. So, what's this thing called post-school? So it's our own new concept that they're bringing in. You're now part of the post-school sector. And post-school, you will see in the legislation, is for all education for people who have left school as well as those who need education opportunities. So it's not post-matric, it is post-school. So that means adult education, people who have left school and want to come back. That means people in higher education who have left school and are now studying in higher education. It also means TVET colleges. And the policy vision is to create a policy framework that enables TVET, that's the department that you belong to shape its strategies and plans for a coherent post-school system where all these things work together. Higher education works together, TVET works together, adult education, CETAs, all of them work together into a single, coherent, differentiated, articulated post-school education and training system. So that's your sector, and it's all covered in this thing called the white paper on PSET. All right. Why is this important? Now, the Constitution says, and it gives you a lot of liberal freedoms and socioeconomic rights. So in terms of the Constitution, number one, everybody in terms of Section 29 has a right, it's not a privilege, has a right to a basic education, including adult basic education, and has a right to further education and training, which the state, through reasonable measures, must make progressively available. You also have the right, every citizen has the right to participate, to choose a trade, occupation, and profession freely, and the practice of a trade and occupation may be regulated by law. If you don't have education, then you won't be able to practice your trade. Right? So these things are rights which are entrenched in the Constitution. Everybody has a right to education. However, let's look at the reality. So if we look at the 2011 census, which is the last census, the one before that was in 2003, and you look here at the bottom, you see who went to primary school or completed primary, and you'll see over here who has attended and who has dropped out. How many people do you think has a matric, by the way? So if you're looking at everybody, how many people do you think has a matric? Stop, think about it. All right. How many people actually went to primary school? By the time it gets to primary school, 9% of people, this is adults, 20 years and older, 9% of people have no schooling whatsoever. So they dropped out even before they went to school. But we still got 91%. By the time it comes to standard 5, completing grade 7, I think they call it now, 21% of people had already dropped out. By the time it comes to in between primary school and high school, going over to high school, another 25%. So by that time, 75% of people do not have the basic right which the Constitution, 25% people do not have the basic right which the Constitution guarantees them. How many people do you think finished matric? 60% of people did not have a matric. That's the majority of South Africans. So the majority of South Africans do not have the right that the Constitution guarantees them. So what are we going to do? And by the way, higher education. It's only 41%. Higher education, how many people do you think have higher education, post-matric studies? 12%. Show you that again. 12% do not have higher education. So you're part of that 12% who's sitting here. You're part of that 12%. But that 12%, this 12% here, makes decisions for this other 88%. Moving on. So that's the size of the problem. Oh, let's go on to the problem further. We then calculated, Shepherd in 2009 calculated that 2.8 million people were not in education, employment, or training. In other words, they were sitting at home. We're calling them NEETs nowadays. They were sitting at home. And let's look at who those people are. Less than grade 10, that's not your problem. 1 million people almost have grade 10 to grade 12. These people are sitting at home. They're not in your colleges. They're sitting at home. So what's going to happen to these 1 million people? Plus, there are people who have grade 12, but who are also sitting at home. Another 6 million. Then there are people who have grade 12 plus an exemption. Almost 100,000 who have grade 12 who can make it into university but are not at university. So all these people together, about 1.7 million people, are not studying. They're at home. There's also some people with university education. That's another story. So where are they going to come to? We posed this question to Parliament and they said, TVET colleges. So you're the solution. So there's the problem. That's the size of the problem. People with no school, people who didn't finish primary, people. So that's the size of the problem. And that's the people who don't have any education. What's the size of the solution? Let's look at the people with no school. The education budget, that's the ABET budget. That's the TVET budget. This is in 2002. Hopefully it's bigger than that now. And those people who don't have post-matric, who need to go into other post-matric opportunities, that's your higher education budget. The budget is for school. And so the assumption is that everybody will go to school, and after school, mommy and daddy will pay for them to study for 3 years at university or somewhere else. But the reality is that most people do not make it out of school, the majority. So they won't ask you, what did you do after school? They will ask you, what standard did you finish? 60% of people. And if you happen to be black, if you happen to be in a rural area, and if you happen to be female, your chances go up. In 2006, the chances were 90%. So that's the problem. So what does the white paper on post-school argue? So what we're going to do? We're going to do a couple of things. Firstly, we're going to expand the system. We're going to make it bigger to accommodate all those people who have fallen out. Then we're going to improve the system. But it means you've got more people coming to the system and you're improving it at the same time. So you've got more bums on seats and you're trying to produce better stuff. That's a challenge. Then we're going to articulate the system so that people can go from TVET colleges, because remember, they must get back into higher education. They can go from TVET colleges into higher education, go into your community education centers, they can go into your CETAs, and they can move between the different systems. They're going to articulate it, but at the same time as we're articulating it, we're differentiating. And in order for people to articulate, to move from one system to another, there needs to be some kind of equality. But the more you make things different, we know this from apartheid, the less equal they sometimes become. So we're going to have to do something very different. But that's what the white paper says that we're going to do. So this is what the different and articulated, this is the vision of the white paper. The vision of the white paper is that colleges and your ABET, your community centers and your CETAs and your higher education, that we're all going to work together and we're going to move in between as one system. It's a post-school system, one system. That's the vision. The reality is a little bit more like this. So in order to get from the NCV into higher education, for example, you must have 70% in all four of your vocational subjects. So if you get 89, 85, 79, and 65%, you cannot even apply to go to university. You can apply to go to the technical college, the technicons, but you cannot apply to go to university. So there are issues. Also, if you want to go into the from the NCV into the CETA system and you want to be an apprentice, you need to have workplace experience. Now, the reason why people came to colleges is because they couldn't find work. So how are they going to get work experience so they can get their apprenticeship? Right. So those are the challenges that we face currently in the college. You can see how much work we need to do, and you can see the kind of challenges that we're asking. So the question is, will the doors of learning and culture remain firmly shut? Or how are we going to deal with that? And that is what this course is about.